Hello everyone. Let's go over the major breaking news you cannot miss from February 28, 2026. We begin with a sudden and extremely serious development. The United States and Israel have launched coordinated airstrikes on Iran. This marks one of the most significant geopolitical escalations in recent years. Let's break down the latest developments from multiple angles. The opening of war. According to The Economist, the joint U.S.-Israel operation appears to aim not only at military targets, but potentially at weakening, or even toppling, Iran's ruling regime. The first visible sign that war had begun was air raid sirens in Israel, breaking what had been a tense but quiet period. Minutes later, footage showed thick smoke rising over Tehran. About 90 minutes after the initial strikes, President Trump released an 8-minute video announcing that the United States had launched large-scale military operations inside Iran. He described the campaign as massive and sustained, aimed at stopping what he called an evil extremist dictatorship that threatens U.S. national security. Soon after, Israel began receiving missile alerts. Iranian missiles were reportedly launched toward northern Israel, with warning sirens spreading across the country and into Gulf states. The first reported casualty occurred in Abu Dhabi, where missile interception debris struck a civilian. This appears to be the beginning of a conflict that could quickly spread across the Middle East. What makes this different from last year? Last June, Israel carried out a preemptive strike on Iran, and the United States joined 10 days later. This time is different. This is a coordinated operation from the start. President Trump did not wait for escalation. Long-range bombers were deployed immediately. The U.S. has assembled its largest regional military presence since the 2003 Iraq War. The current buildup includes 2 aircraft carrier strike groups, over 200 combat aircraft, dozens of refueling and reconnaissance aircraft. Israeli officials say the next 48 hours will involve sustained strikes targeting Iran's offensive capabilities, especially ballistic missile stockpiles. This time, the war aims appear broader, possibly including regime destabilization. High risk, high reward. Reuters reports that before approving the operation, President Trump was briefed extensively on both the risks and potential long-term strategic gains. Officials described the mission as high risk, high reward. The White House was warned of possible heavy U.S. casualties and Iranian retaliation against American bases in the region. The risks include Iranian missile strikes penetrating air defenses, attacks on U.S. bases in Iraq, Syria, Qatar, or Bahrain, retaliation by Iranian proxy groups. Trump acknowledged these risks publicly, saying American lives could be lost, but argued the mission serves long-term security interests. Meanwhile, U.S. Central Command leadership traveled to Washington to participate in high-level war planning sessions. Intelligence assessment. What if leadership falls? Another Reuters report reveals that the CIA assessed possible outcomes if Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, were killed. The intelligence conclusion reportedly suggested that even if Khamenei were eliminated, he would likely be replaced by a hardline figure from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. In other words, regime collapse is not guaranteed. Washington appears aware that leadership decapitation does not automatically equal political transformation. International reaction. The global response has been cautious and fragmented. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer quickly clarified that Britain was not involved. France, Germany, and the UK issued a joint statement condemning Iranian retaliatory strikes and urging Iran to resume negotiations. French President Emmanuel Macron separately called for an emergency UN Security Council meeting. Russia described the operation as extremely dangerous. China called for immediate ceasefire. Most statements stop short of openly endorsing the U.S. strikes, while urging restraint. U.S. domestic reaction. In the United States, political reactions are sharply divided. Republican leaders, including Senate Armed Services Committee Chairman Roger Wicker, praised the strikes as necessary to protect American interests. Democrats strongly criticized the action, arguing the president used military force without congressional authorization. Some lawmakers described the operation as unconstitutional and warned against dragging the country into another prolonged war. Iranian counterstrikes and regional spillover. Iran has already launched missile strikes toward Israel and reportedly targeted U.S. assets in Bahrain and Qatar. Saudi Arabia claims it intercepted missiles over Riyadh and eastern regions. Regional governments are preparing for broader escalation. Iran's strategy appears clear: if attacked directly, it will expand the battlefield across the region. What are the U.S. war objectives? Analysts describe three main objectives: destroy Iran's nuclear infrastructure, including Natanz and Fordow. Cripple missile and drone production capabilities. Potentially destabilize or replace the current regime. Major risks ahead. There are several critical risks. Regional escalation. Missile exchanges could expand across Gulf states. Energy shock. If Iran disrupts the Strait of Hormuz, roughly one-third of global oil shipments could be affected. Even though the U.S. produces large amounts of oil, domestic prices would still rise because global oil markets are interconnected. Higher oil prices would increase inflation, placing political pressure on Washington. Proxy retaliation. Iran-backed groups such as the Houthis in Yemen and Shiite militias in Iraq remain capable of destabilizing the region. The next 48 to 72 hours are critical. Two factors will likely determine the trajectory of this war: domestic reaction inside Iran. Will citizens respond to Trump's call to rise up? Or will foreign attack consolidate support behind the government? Effectiveness of leadership strikes. If top Iranian leaders remain unharmed, airstrikes alone may not achieve strategic goals. A ground invasion appears unlikely, and politically dangerous for Washington. Final note. Information warfare is already intensifying across social media platforms. Rumors and unverified claims are spreading rapidly. In moments like this, patience and careful verification are essential. The coming 48 to 72 hours may shape the future of the Middle East. Now let's move to the second major story that has dominated U.S. headlines. Originally, this looked like a dispute within the tech industry. But in just a few days, it has turned into a national political battle involving the Pentagon, the White House, and America's biggest AI companies. This is no longer just a tech story. It's a power struggle over who controls the future of war. The core conflict. According to the Wall Street Journal, the Trump administration has effectively abandoned Anthropic and shifted support toward OpenAI. The Department of Defense has now granted OpenAI approval to operate its models in classified environments, a status previously held only by Anthropic. Meanwhile, Anthropic has not only lost the contract. It has been placed on a supply chain risk list. That escalation shocked many observers. Being placed on such a list is usually something that happens to foreign firms, like Huawei, not American AI companies. So what happened? The two red lines. The conflict centers around two restrictions Anthropic demanded in its contract with the Pentagon. Anthropic said, its AI cannot be used for mass domestic surveillance of American citizens. Its AI cannot be used in fully autonomous lethal weapons, meaning machines cannot independently decide to kill without human authorization. Anthropic's position was clear: you can use our AI to assist with military analysis. But a human must make the final decision to pull the trigger. No autonomous kill decisions. They argued that allowing machines to independently select and attack targets creates massive ethical and security risks. The Pentagon's objection. The Pentagon pushed back. Its argument was fundamentally about sovereignty. Officials reportedly viewed Anthropic's restrictions as private tech companies attempting to control how the U.S. military conducts war. From their perspective, military decisions must be governed by national authority, not corporate red lines. In other words, the government cannot allow tech firms to dictate battlefield rules. Many conservative voices agreed with this reasoning. So why was OpenAI accepted? Here's where it gets interesting. OpenAI also publicly supports restrictions against mass surveillance and fully autonomous lethal weapons. So why did the Pentagon sign with OpenAI but not Anthropic? The difference lies in how the restrictions were framed. OpenAI reportedly added a broader clause: its safety principles operate within the framework of existing U.S. law and government authority. Translated more bluntly, OpenAI expressed loyalty to government decision-making authority. Anthropic held firm on its red lines. OpenAI aligned its red lines with government sovereignty. That subtle difference changed everything. Critics argue OpenAI was politically more flexible. Supporters argue OpenAI was simply more pragmatic. Political overtones. This story escalated further when President Trump posted online that the United States would never allow a radical left, woke company to influence how the military fights wars. Anthropic CEO, Dario Amodei, responded by saying the company could not in good conscience accept certain demands. Meanwhile, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman has been politically active. OpenAI's leadership has financially supported pro-Trump political efforts, including major donations to political action committees aligned with Trump's AI agenda. Analysts now say this conflict may be less about technical safety differences and more about political alignment. The ideological divide inside AI. This dispute reflects a deeper ideological split in America. Conservatives and liberals increasingly view artificial intelligence through different political lenses. Elon Musk has repeatedly criticized AI models developed by companies like Anthropic and Google, claiming they reflect woke ideology. Meanwhile, progressive voices argue AI systems must enforce safeguards against discrimination, bias, and harmful content. The AI debate has become an extension of America's broader culture war. Vice President Vance's framing. Vice President J.D. Vance made this divide even clearer in a speech last year. He argued that conservatives tend to favor cryptocurrency because it emphasizes decentralization, privacy, and anti-establishment principles. Meanwhile, he suggested that liberals gravitate toward artificial intelligence because AI requires massive centralized data, computing infrastructure, and institutional control. Whether you agree or disagree, his framing reveals something important. In the current political environment, AI is not just technology. It is ideological infrastructure. Tech patriotism. The Trump administration has introduced another concept, technological patriotism. The idea is simple: American tech companies must serve national interests and cannot place moral restrictions above government authority. From this perspective, setting strict ethical boundaries that limit military applications can be portrayed as unpatriotic. This is a powerful political framing. It shifts the debate from "is this ethical?" to "are you loyal to the nation?" Why AI is different from the Internet. This ideological clash is sharper than what America experienced during the early days of the Internet. Back then, debates focused on innovation, privacy, and market growth. AI is different. AI directly interacts with decision-making, warfare, surveillance, and social control. Unlike previous technological revolutions, AI systems can encode values directly into how they operate. And that makes AI inherently political. Final observation. This conflict between Anthropic and OpenAI is not just about contracts. It reveals who controls military AI. Whether corporations can constrain state power. Whether safety limits survive political pressure. How ideology shapes technological development. Artificial intelligence is no longer neutral infrastructure. It has become a battlefield of values. And this battle is only beginning. This has been Anti-Noise Intelligence, tracking the world so you stay ahead of it. Thank you for listening, and make sure to tune in again tomorrow.